that has all-wheel drive.
Okay,
It's still.
I think we should be good to go, Dean.
Not going more than 10-15 miles an hour to go.
Yep. Should be good. Okay, we probably should get started. Maybe it's the weather may be deterring folks, so maybe we'll get a few latecomers, but I do want to get started so we don't keep our guests too long. I'm Ed Fitzgerald, the president of Emeritus Center, and I'd like to welcome everybody to our presentation today. Our special guest is the Vice President for Research and Economic Development, Dr. Kesavadas, aka Kesh. A lot easier for us to pronounce. And we are recording it as usual, so we can post it on our website for those Emeriti who weren't able to attend. So I'll turn it over to Dean for the formal introduction.
Thank you. And I have to say, I'm so glad that he's here with us because we're all pretty well novices on getting this stuff done and getting the recording. So he popped in his flash drive and had it all set for me. So thank you very much. So we welcome you, and by means of introduction, he's the founding director of the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign's Healthcare Engineering Systems, and which is the largest endowed center in the University of Illinois system. In the center, he managed research, IP, and commercialization, data warehouse management, regulatory affairs, IRB and human subject protocols, student exchange, graduate programs, external partnerships, government relations, and much more. A professor of industrial and enterprise systems engineering, computer science, electrical and computer engineering, and a member of the inaugural faculty of the Carle, Illinois College of Medicine. Kesh was named a Distinguished University Presidential Executive Leadership Fellow in 2019. Kesh received his Bachelor in Technology degree in Mechanical Engineering from the University of Calicut, India in '85. His Master's in Technology degree in Aircraft Production Engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras in 1987, and his PhD in Industrial Engineering from the Pennsylvania State University in 1995. Sir, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dean. I like your purple shirts.
You got a gold watch, so I got the colors.
Oh, there you go.
We have a mic if you'd like it, if not.
This is a small audience, and as long as my Zoom is picking up,
Right,
which I
okay.
think it is,
Good. Yeah, that should pick it up. Sure.
Maybe I'll speak a few words about myself, but before I start that, I want to know, it's a small enough audience that I can hear from each one of you, what department you were teaching and your background. You already told me you're from School of Public Health.
Right.
Maybe you just go around.
I'm retired, but at one time I was the vice president for administration here.
Wonderful.
You were Todd's predecessor.
Todd's
predecessor.
Immediately before Todd?
Yes.
All right. Okay. So you know all the where the money and all the hidden stuff in the cannabis.
Everybody fought that.
Okay. All right. Campus Center is beautiful. I like the campus center. Okay.
Well, that's Oh, technology. I didn't get I didn't know. I thought it was communications. I didn't know it was technology. I'm Dave Wagner, retired from the Department of Sociology.
Okay.
Dan Smith, retired from SUNY Poly, but I worked here for 25 years as assistant dean of undergraduate studies.
Okay. And then he transferred to SUNY Poly.
And then after when SUNY Poly did,
Yeah.
somebody did their act. We were all stranded. I was putting that way.
Well, at least you have now one place where you're not stranded. So you're in this building.
Dean Hampton, I'm Associate Registrar Emeritus. I was here for 50 years, 20 years in residential life, and 30 years in the Registrar's office.
Wow. There's a lot of history of Albany here. I actually started my tenure track career at Buffalo. I spent, so after finishing Penn State, I did a year at Iowa State. as a scientist. Then I got the offer to be a tenure track in mechanical engineering at Buffalo, 96. And I was there till 2014, so 18 years. I went up the ranks, got my tenure there, became a professor. So I'm not new to SUNY system myself, you know. So I came to Albany only one time, not to Albany, to University of Albany, many years back when they were giving an Inventors Award and I was on campus at that time. So that's my connection, but not new to the Research Foundation and all the crazy stuff that goes on with the SUNY system. It's so unique. So I say that I've been trained well to survive in the SUNY system. Very well. But after finishing Buffalo, I went to Illinois. I was recruited to start the new center. When I was in Buffalo, I worked in the space of some really cool new technology at that time called virtual reality, which is now much more mainframe. In fact, yesterday I went to the Van Gogh immersive show in Schenectady. Have you anybody who has not seen that show? It is really worth going. It is like I've been reading about it in the press for last 2 months or maybe 3 months, and I thought there's a lot of hype. But when I went there, I was like blown away. It is a fantastic show. They have taken Van Gogh's paintings and animated it. And it's something that I've read about it for 15 years, computer animation, Hollywood type people working on, taking a painting where there's a painting brush of water, but then what happens if the water is actually moving? It's really good. The reason I said that is because my research for many years have been in the space of using virtual reality, but not for entertainment, but mostly for education purposes. I worked with the medical schools using virtual reality to train doctors and nurses. I also worked for many years in the space of using robots for surgery. That was probably one of my biggest long-term work that I did, and training doctors in how to use a robot. I mean, if you ever been to a urologist with a prostate problem, you will probably hear that doctors always recommend that, well, you could use this robot to do the surgery, which is, you can go to St. Peter's, has 5 robots, Albany Med has a couple of them. But the robots are relatively new, like 20 years old. And doctors who sit in front and control the robots, they need training. And one of the very first training system using computer graphics and animation was created in my lab in Buffalo, which eventually became a product. I ended up doing a small startup company to manufacture that and sell it. And proud to say that it's there in like 4 continents today, including one in Albany Med many years back they bought. So that's how I got interested in the space of healthcare. And eventually I went to Illinois and spent 8 years trying to see how engineering can help improve healthcare outcomes. Worked on using artificial intelligence, on using data, using, again, animation type softwares to train nurses, medical students, and the process, talked to a lot of donors, raised a lot of money. At the time I left, we had over $125 million in endowment, which is the largest in the Illinois system ever. So we'd get like $5 million a year from the interest from that we plowed back into engineering. And later on, it was not just engineering. We engaged all parts of the campus to work with doctors to come together to think of problems, not just as a doctor or engineer, but how can they work together? That was the whole motto. So when I got approached for this position here in Albany, what really excited me about Albany is the fact that in the area of research, if you look at the core strength, I will go through some slides and I'll talk about what I see as core strengths and the direction that university should be going, is the fact that almost everything that we do here somehow touches people's lives. Whether the work going on in climate and atmospheric research, or looking at the work in the area of public health, health disparity, things we do really touch people's life. or whether it's education, social welfare. So that's very something that a university is very unique among the SUNY system, I would say, but also unique across the country, right? In the sense that almost 45% of our students come from minority background. We are pretty close to being a minority serving university, even though I do not know what's the criteria still left to be that. We are also very close to being Hispanic serving institute, and probably an ASI also, that is Asian serving. So it is really a very diverse campus, most diverse in the SUNY system, but also one of the most diverse in the country. So that's really what attracted me to come here, because the foundation of the university is very strong in the right direction, and coming up and thinking of something that pushes the agenda could make us really be one of the top universities in the country. So my presentation today is about what we are today, what are the big initiatives that we are focusing on, how do we become not just bigger, but better at what we do. So having said that, like I was mentioning a few minutes back, at some point, our campus put together what are our signature strengths. So if you look at the signature strengths, I mentioned climate science, I mentioned health sciences, especially minority health disparities. But we have a new college that works in the space of emergency preparedness, cybersecurity, that are two, again, very unique. Our college, CEHC college, is like one of its kind in the country, focusing on emergency preparedness and cybersecurity and homeland security. And if you look at the things that we do, we work on public policy side, we look at inclusion, also focus on AI, and also we do a lot of work in interdisciplinary nature. Share that. We'll go to the next slide. Okay, this slide. Okay. There are some evidence that everything that we are doing in the space is being recognized nationally. That is our focus on diversity, our focus on equity, inclusion. There are two examples I will give you. One is, very recently, our university led a $2.1 million grant from National Science Foundation to improve the STEM workforce in the minority area, which coordinated effort from 15 different SUNY campuses. This is a very high profile award that we received about 3 months back. The second one is the Seal of Excellencia. Seal of Excellencia is given to a campus that shows dedication towards Latina and Latina students. I think 3 years back, our campus applied for that. We didn't get it, but 3 years the university has been working under the leadership Alvidan, our president, to look at what else we can do and put together a very good proposal. This year, we were one of the 6 universities in the country to get the Seal of Excellencia, and we are only one of the 24 in the whole US to get the seal. And we are the only R1 university, a Research 1 university in the entire Northeast to have a Seal of Excellencia, and the only SUNY campus to have. So this is a fantastic recognition. And if you were at the president's address, you probably heard President Alvidan say that he is now in the White House a Hispanic program as one of the White House members. So this is really exciting to see our campus being recognized for something that we have been already doing for a lot. Now let's talk a little bit about what we are. We are one of the 130 odd research one universities in the country, what we call as an R1 university. And if you look at it, the total research that we do through Research Foundation is in the range of about $125 million per year, out of which 81 comes from sponsored research. These are research coming from actual research projects. The other $25 million actually flows through the New York State Department of Health. We count the research they do through the School of Public Health as a part of our research, and also some work with that we do for state in terms of training through our PDP program and so on and so forth. If you put all of them together, we add up to about 125 million, but research is 81. And a goal for us is to double and go to about $200 million, and also trying to change the balance from more towards federal and sponsored program. Currently, our portfolio has a very large state portion that comes from Department of Health and others and PDP. Unfortunately, state really doesn't give us enough overheads, very low overheads, maybe between 12 to 19%. While federal government grants run at 58% or 56.5%, we are requesting to increase it by 2%. So obviously, we want to be more federally funded and less state. So we want to change the balance. So when we say double, we're trying to see if it can be more than double. There is also some effort at the governor's level. After a very long time, the governor had some nice words to talk about SUNY and things like that in the latest last state of the state address. The SUNY system asked us to come up with a plan. If the whole SUNY system needs to double its research, go from 1 billion to 2 billion, what would it require from the state in terms of investment? So Provost and I and a bunch of us have worked at looking at the whole, what would it mean to double the research in terms of faculty, infrastructure, new programs and things like that. So we have been working at looking at some strategic plans around that. And quite a few of these new initiatives we have already started putting in place. And some of them I'll talk more in detail today, but I want to just capture that at a pretty high level. One, we just got $5.2 million from the state to hire additional faculty members in addition to a regular plan. And then it's a recurring 5.2 million, which means that state is now going to give us that every year. We are planning to hire 27 faculty members in what we call a cluster hire. And in addition to 20 more faculty members that would have been hired anyway, which means in this year's plan, we have 47 new faculty members. I was wondering if anybody remembers last time we recruited 41 faculty members in a year.
Been a while.
That would be like almost 8% of our entire faculty strength, right? But it's a great opportunity to bring new blood and new ideas and things like that, right? Of course, can we recruit 47 a year? I don't think so. It's very difficult. But we have the line. Even if we don't recruit this year, hopefully by next year, we will recruit 47. That's one of the biggest investments. And my number tells me that if you bring 47 new faculty members, quite a few on the research side, that will increase our research proposals by about, returns by about $20 million in 2, 3, 4 years down the road. The second area we are also looking at how can we improve our core facilities, create infrastructure that will allow faculties to succeed. If you bring somebody who is a very high profile faculty member, do they have enough facilities to work on? We are in the process of trying to see if we can change the way our sponsor program works, increase the strength and increase more support across the campus. This includes everything from providing more facilitators to help in writing grants, to manage grants. So significant effort we are putting to try to bring our sponsored program activity up to speed, because that area has been almost throttled in the last many years. Many jobs that's gone was never replaced, and so on and so forth. So I constantly hear complaints. I've been doing listening tours across the university, talking to research faculty members, asking what their pain points are. We have created 4 committees in 4 different areas of research, and so that we can have a strategic plan by spring, so to reinvest and to improve. And part of that is increasing more research support, adding more grant writing support, and things like that. The 4th area that we are focusing on is to do more multidisciplinary centers, and I will talk about 2-3 of them today in more detail. And one thing we really lack, which is why we trail Buffalo and Stony Brook, is because we don't have our own medical school. If you look at the biggest chunk of money they get is from National Institute of Health, and that comes from the fact that they have medical school, both Buffalo. Buffalo does $450 to $500 million in grants. If you take out, the medical school, their total grant goes down to about 180 million or 200 million, and they are literally much bigger than us, double. So we are not really much of, apple to apple comparison with Buffalo and Stony Brook in terms of per capita research. But on total, so one thing that I started doing after I came here is trying to build closer relationship with Albany Medical College. We have their new president and the new dean. Both of them are new for Albany Med, coming here in November. We want to see how we can improve or increase collaboration. Some of you have been here for long enough to know that this has been tried in the past, but political, whatever reason, it's never really grown. But I think with the new leadership, there's a potential for us to relook at that. I've also been visiting both upstate and downstate medical colleges. Both these colleges don't have engineering, upstate and downstate. Of course, they occasionally work with Binghamton and Stony Brook, but they really are not that close. Binghamton has his own medical school, so they don't really work with downstate, but they all have really challenging problems that they're interested in working with our students and things like that. So I'm trying to see if we can tie up with upstate and downstate as a single unit, that we all work together much more closely, because it is synergistic for both campuses. And then finally try to, one area that is under my office, which was not in Jim Diaz's office, the economic development was not a part of this. So when I came here, my title has a Vice President of Research and Economic Development. So we have started putting more effort. eTech Center has a incubator innovation space there. And we are trying to build a closer relationship with CNSC, with RPI and others. And I'll show you in one example of where this collaboration hopefully can be a big thing for Albany, but also big for our campus. So let me start by talking about some initiatives that I think will make a big impact in the coming years. And the first one I would like to talk about is the AI initiatives. So AI, or artificial intelligence, is a term probably we see on TV, on social media every day, right? But AI is not new. It's been around for a number of years, except that with more growth in other things like social media and technologies that use internet, we are seeing that it's now impacting all of us, right? If you go to Facebook, what Facebook book throws at you to read has a lot to do with an artificial intelligence computer in the back analyzing who you are, trying to learn who you are, and then trying to manipulate you in some way or other. It happens in you open your map in the car when you're driving, everything that it comes and throws at you at some point is being done at the AI level. So artificial intelligence is everywhere. Doctors are using it. Just last week, I was at the upstate attending a computer computer vision research conference, and they were saying that how much AI is already being used for diagnosis. And they showed that one particular disease that impacts newborn children, and there was an example. They said they took the picture and shared it 14 world experts, and 42% of the doctors did not diagnose it, that condition, even though there's a reason for it, because of the way the images were given. And they showed that the AI system was trained was almost always was able to diagnose it. It's just an example of how, by training AI, you can solve some of the things that human beings with their staring at the image might miss, because it is very strenuous effort, right? So it's my son is training to be a radiologist. He's a third-year fellow, not a fellow, he's a resident. And he was telling me that there are a lot of things that human beings can do very well. But on the other hand, there are a lot of things human beings get tired, like looking at a small fracture. We're looking at it all day long. By the end, he says he looks at about 72 patients in a day, and he's young. So it's okay. But he was saying, imagine if I'm doing for 20, 30 years, I might miss a hairline fracture that an AI, artificial intelligence software, will never miss, because they are not tired. They're simply looking for a fact. On the other hand, if you want to make a system, like for example, we give an example of, he was looking at an X-ray of a woman who had come for a certain disease, but while he was looking, he noticed a tumor which she did not come to hospital for. And she completely early diagnosis probably saved her life. But he's saying that I'm not sure those kind of things AI would have caught, because AI, if you're trained to do something, will do that for you. Human beings think bigger. So all those things are there. So it's a great time to look at AI, right? But it's everywhere: education, climate, think of it. So we started the AI initiative, which I'll explain by this 4-quadrant presentation. The most important part of the AI initiative is to bring a computer here that can learn from billions and billions of data, which our current computers cannot do. And those computers do exist like that. Los Alamos have one, but who uses it? Federal government uses it to do an energy nuclear research. Facebook has it, Amazon has it, but none of them are designed for the good of the people, in my opinion. They're all designed for business. So universities really don't have access to that kind of computer. So most faculty members end up buying a computer in the lab, which has what they call as the GPU, which stands for graphic process unit. GPUs are the modern day processor that can learn a lot. And they buy this 4 GPU machine in the lab, and they have graduate students sitting and doing stuff, and they're programming and they're writing something, and this computer is trying to learn for something, which takes them 2 weeks, 1 year to learn, and they're used to it. But really, with the computing power today, they should be doing things that can learn in 5 minutes, in 2 minutes, right? As I gave you the medical example, if an AI computer has to look at something and do something, if they say, give me 2 weeks, you cannot use it in a clinic. It has to be done in 20 seconds. Well, as a researcher, most of the time faculties are okay. Here's a graduate student sitting and pumping for 2 weeks and 3 weeks, and then finally find a result. So our thought was, what if universities have that kind of computer understanding, what can you do? Can you make the weather prediction better, right? And when I first came here, working with Sheila, VP for Government Relations, I do the tour of the Capitol, talk to everybody in the state, people like Pat Fahey, John McDonald. And I told them, let's listen, Albany can take a lead in this, give us a computer, we'll show you how we can change the research here. And they gave us $75 million, so which never happened before, you probably know. Half of it actually is going to help us finish the engineering, the Schuyler High School building. The other half is going to a computer. Still $37 million buys you a lot of computer. Okay. This news is got really companies like IBM, NVIDIA, that's a company that makes the chip. All of this, they read in the news. They all approached us, say, we want to partner with you. So I'm working with IBM and others to come up with the design of the computer. How should the computer? Because this is not something you can go to Best Buy and buy. Right. So you have to design these computers and make it in a way that caters to multiple users in the university. Right. We don't do one thing. If you go to a private company, they're focused on one thing. But in our campus, we have chemistry professors, biology professors, math, we have public health, we have climate. Everybody has slightly different needs. So if you want to make everybody happy, you have to think really outside the box. So I'm actually working on that right now to see that I built something that nobody can complain that they didn't get something of AI. It's very challenging. I will tell you, even IBM finds it very challenging. So much they said that we are very interested to work with you because we have never done a project like this. They did one for Los Alamos, which is the fastest AI computer in the country. But for them, it's very clear what Los Alamos wants to do. They have this large equation, nuclear energy, whatever it is, but that's not the case with us. So the goal is that by next fall, we'll have the computer in our data center. And a part of that is going to be what I like to call a developmental computer, which means that it's not something available in the market to buy, but it's something that is coming out of our Albany Nano Center or other companies who are working in the new generation of semiconductor and things like that. The second part of that is a training program in the campus. You might have heard, or if not, we call it AI plus X. The idea is that you come to do anything in Albany, whether it's athletics or zoology, but from the very first year, you'll be introduced to AI. So we call it AI plus X. I don't think there is a single campus in the country that is doing right now. So we might actually be creating something which could be a model for the universities to follow. So our provost is leading that. A bunch of deans and a committee has been formed to look at how the curriculum will look like. What are the common things that everyone should know, and what are the more specialized things that you learn as you become a junior or a senior, you can become an expert. Like if you're doing music, you might know the foundation of AI, but you'll focus something in the final year of AI in music, for example. And the goal here is that as the AI becomes so prevalent, we want people who go to the workforce to understand many aspects of AI. Like, for example, one thing very often you hear about AI is a bias in the system. Bias is because AI systems are fundamentally a system that learns. It learns from patterns, millions of patterns. And if the patterns are given in a certain fashion, it learns that, right? Like for example, one day if I go on Google and search for an electric car, it keeps the next 2 weeks bothering me. Everything I open in the computer, it sort of adds for electric car because it thinks that that's what you're going to do. So stupid. But in real life, for electric cars, okay. But what if the software that is doing some medical thing, has been trained, say everything is trained on people with a certain racial profile, and if it doesn't match somebody else, you get misdiagnosis, right? So the idea is that everyone in the future, they go out, I call it AI is like the humanities of the future. We teach history to everybody. Why? You should understand where you came from. It's the same thing about AI. You should know what AI can do or cannot do, right? So they can be a good shepherd when they go work in the insurance industry or wherever they go to work, right? The third is, of course, trying to apply that in our campus. How can institutes like ASRC and others benefit from that? That is the third part. And the fourth, I mentioned economic development, trying to see if we can use our cluster to bring in smaller startup companies to Albany who can leverage our computing facility, right? So that's the exciting part. All right. So you said way too soon, then I'm good at it. I usually use a MacBook, so I find this, yeah. So I already talked. Huh?
Different kind of bias.
Yeah, it's a bias towards Mac. Exactly. Yeah. So these are some of our partners with whom we are working right now on all of this, the AI initiative. Many people have joined us now. GE is joined us. We're, SUNY Poly, we are working very closely with CNSC. So where do we stand right now? Our goal eventually is to invest $200 million into the space. So we just got the 75 million from the state. We are putting in some money internally, but we also got the $5 million for a new faculty hire. I mentioned we are going to do a cluster hire. So we are going to advertise for 27 new positions in AI. But they are distributed in all the colleges. So every college will get 3 or 4. So we might find somebody who's working the minorities, health disparity space, who has already used AI. So we want to sort of make sure that the faculty members across the campus are working on multiple research areas in AI. So this is the big vision that our provost has. In addition to getting a new director for our AI, we like calling the czar, AI czar. Somebody, who comes and manages the whole AI. So it's not me or provost or us, but we want to bring some world leader to come here and run the show. This part is we are working with everybody from IBM. I have some, verbal interest from IBM to see maybe they can fund some of the computer. If I put 37 million, would IBM be interested in putting another 37 million, the kind of thing they want to bring into research? They said it's possible. So they are discussing that. I'm hoping that that'll happen, right, at sometime soon. So eventually reach this 200 million goal. We already reached 75 plus. In 10 years, I say, including the faculty, we crossed 125. So imagine, in the beginning of this year, it did not exist, right? Now in the 10 months, it's grown, right? We also promised that when we went to governor, the first question they asked is, would other SUNY campuses be able to use it? And the answer was yes. Eventually, every SUNY campus through a cloud system will have access to our AI computing facility. I've sent a survey to all the SUNY campuses last month to give me names of faculty members. What would they like to see in the AI computer? How much computing would they need? And we are compiling this so that I was mentioning design of the computer will be driven by some of the big users. So I've been getting some really good feedback from other SUNY campuses as well. Locally, even RPI is asking, can we use it too? They are very good at AI. They have got very good AI supercomputing facility. But obviously what we are building is 10 times better than what they have. Plus IBM has a very close relationship to RPI. Historically, so IBM is also telling us, let's all work together because that will make our investment double, right? Their investment. So this is good news for Albany Capital Region, in my opinion. It's not just about us. So there are a number of areas that in terms of use cases, I mentioned there are a lot of organizations who are interested. Now, of course, I may not have mentioned Wadsworth. Trying to see if we can get a closer relationship with Wadsworth to do big data. 19 million patient data for New York State exists in the database. Would some faculty be interested in using this computer to analyze this data and try to provide services, zip code by zip code using data? Can we identify people who may have certain health disease that is affected by the climate change? These are things that may not be obvious for us as human beings, but maybe computers can find some correlations that's not possible. So anything from healthcare to cybersecurity to robotics, they can all benefit from this AI area. Quantum computing is coming up. Maybe there's a potential for us to work in that. And then chip design itself. So CNSC, is primarily into building, manufacturing semiconductor. In our whole region, we have no expertise in design. Design still happens in other parts of the country. And in CNSC, what we do is fabricate those chips. It's a lot of interest to see we can be a place where you come for everything. You come here for design of chip, manufacturing of chip, and the chip goes into a computer, and the computer is used by people to solve world's problems, right? That's the goal eventually, and I'm hoping that the next few years we will also build some expertise in chip design as well. So I mentioned of how this can impact Capital Region, and I will give you one activity that we are working on right now, which I think can make that happen. And that is something related to what National Science Foundation is doing called Regional Innovation Engine, RIE. So National Science Foundation is planning to give 5 grants of each $160 million around the US to create a hub for economic growth. Can be anything. Region can decide and compete for it, right? So the first round, we were successful in passing the first round. We have been asked to submit a full proposal. So our vision was to make this region the hub of the intersection between climate change and health. Okay, and the idea being that we know climate change is impacting everybody. We also know that because of climate change, it impacts health of the people. There's already a lot of work, like SPH has some faculty members, Shaolin, for example. There are people who are working on those areas already, showing that because of climate change, there's more pollution in the air, temperature impacts people, the warming weather is impacting people's mental state. There's a lot of depression, for example. But we have really not gone deep into it, in the sense that we still don't know the real impact and how we can address it. So we want to be sort of the global center of looking at how health and climate impact each other, and see how that can be looked at as the society, equity, social justice, reducing the effect of disparity and things like that. So it's a big effort. The main partners in that is RPI, us, CNSC, IBM, and GE Research. It's being coordinated by Center for Economic Growth. And then there are a bunch of companies and organizations who are in our ecosystem that includes economic development folks, higher education, organizations like HVCC and others. So this proposal is still being formed right now. It's due in January. But if it is successful, it will really be a big boost in this region to become like the global center for AI. So we're very excited about this effort. The second big effort that I want to highlight is a focus on smart aging, right? This is something that everyone is retired. You all know of it, but everybody is going towards that direction, right? I saw statistics that 14.5% of US is about 65 years old. And every day, 10,000 new people turn 65. And this will continue till 2030. Every day, 300,000 people turn 65 in the US. I also read a nice article last week from Low CEO. So Low CEO said that they think that in the next 10 years, there is going to be $100 billion market for changing bathtubs into walk-in showers at home. $100 billion. I just bought a home after I came here, and my wife has some knee problem, and she said, we have to get a house, the walk-in bath and the bedroom first floor. Guess what? There's not many houses like that. Eventually I found one. I was very lucky to find one. But I look at every house and say, 10 years from now or 5 years from now, what will I be doing? So companies are already seeing that is happening, right? And then there are all the other things involved with that, things like loneliness, caregiving. My mother who lives in India, she's 81 years old now, but about 5 years back, she was alone. And if I call her and if she doesn't pick up my phone, I'm calling a neighbor to go and check on her. So finally, she moved in with my sister, I'm lucky that she's my sister. But this is a problem globally, right? In countries like China, where for 30 years, they only had a one-child policy, they have a serious issue. Their parents live in rural China, and this kids have a job in Shanghai and Beijing. And both husband and wife have 2 parents each, and they have no siblings, right? It's a serious problem for them, right? So we think that this is one thing that can bring the entire campus to work together. Whether you're working using RNA for chronic conditions, or you're working on policy making, or you're working on engineering to do new devices, it brings all the campus together. So we had a really nice symposium, like a 1.5 day symposium just last week. We had the director of the New York State, I don't know what they call it, for something for aging, Department for Aging or something like that, right? So the director was here. I was very impressed to hear everything they are doing for this employer, for people of state of New York. Greg, I think Greg, he mentioned that probably New York does more than any other state in the US. He said we are 10 years ahead of California, whatever that means. But the website they had was really good. If you haven't seen the website, you should go and check it out and go and search online. There's so many programs for not only elderly population, but also caregivers. There are training programs for caregivers. They even gave out 200,000 robots that can be friends with people at home. So part of a research project. So they did a lot of stuff. So and they were interested to work with us in this space. So this is something which we'll continue working towards. We'll eventually create a big center here. Hopefully work with the state. Early this morning, I was in talk with the Health Exchange Institute. It's a part of United Nations. They are looking at mental health, aging, loneliness, and I'm negotiating with them to bring a center of excellence here, funded by United Nations. That is School of Public Health, and also School of Business and others can work together. And our connection with Department of Health and others is really attractive for United Nations. They think that we have the infrastructure here to create a center like that. And I was talking to them about this initiative. They said we'd be very interested in participating in that. So very exciting there. Life sciences, we know that this has been a strength. RNA has been a big strength. We are, hopefully invest more into that and try to see, as the Wadsworth Center new building comes up in Harriman campus, whether that impact more research in the space here on campus. Here's a new institute that our president agreed to fund. This is a new institute for achievement of social and health equity, we call it. We are very close to recruiting a new director for the center, a very well-known faculty member from another Big Ten university, and he will come here and run this institute. President has invested $1.6 million for jumpstarting. Traditionally, there's a lot of strength on campus in the space. We have an S21 grant, which is basically a $10 million endowment that the university received. It's in a bank that gives us $400,000 a year. That's used for research. And then also, we work for the state government, looking at the impact of COVID on Latinx and Black population due to COVID. So there's a lot of strength. So we are trying to put all of this under one umbrella and call it an institute. So I'm hoping that this institute will play a major role to bring people from across the campus to come and work in that space. So as I mentioned, our new high school work is going on very well. Half of the building will be open by fall of next year, the other half in 2026. And by 2026, the engineering will be completely ready, up and running. We are also talking about planning maybe another 5 years to have a new research building for engineering, or maybe right next to that building. So I'm putting together an idea what the building will look like, who will be in that building and things like that. So hopefully it'll get into our New York State construction budget very soon. And then of course, this Harriman campus itself, for years, people have been thinking of this campus to be converted this into a research park. Nothing really has happened, but I'm hoping that many of the state buildings, which is not used properly, is handed over to us as like ETech, a couple of more buildings focused on research, moving SPH perhaps to Harriman campus. So if the governor and the state is supportive, I think it can have a huge impact on campus if the Harriman campus is completely converted into a research park. I was listening to Pat Fahey talk in one of the talk, and she was saying this can be the research triangle in capital. So a lot of state legislators know, but I think there needs to be more willpower to actually do it. Do you know any historically, is any effort in trying to get more of those Harriman campus buildings to SUNY Albany or?
So the buildings, no, space.
Space,
No.
we got
Robert
one.
Jones was here, that's how they opened it up for the
ETech.
E-Tech.
Yeah, there are more spaces there. We could always build. But building projects takes a long time. If you
Wadsworth moves in, then that
huge.
project gets going, that would be the next step.
Yeah,
There
yeah.
have been several different plans for the Harriman campus over the years. Only recently have there been very many that have involved.
Yeah,
New Albany, more seriously.
yeah, yeah. We have been in talks with New York State Police they have a big vision for a forensic institute, a $350 million proposal near ETech. And they approached us to see if we could take a part of the building and make a research/incubator space. So we gave them some vision on that and how we could do that. Because there are a few faculty members like Igor, Lednev, and others who are actually working very closely with them in forensic using his Raman spectroscopy technique. So we gave them some big vision idea on what we could do with them. So they tried for the last 2 years. I think there is a change in the New York State Police, right?
Oh, that's true, recently.
Recently. So I don't know where that stands, but the previous director was very supportive of the project. I think it'll still continue. Well,
And the Skylar building is a huge forward too.
yeah, yeah,
Being downtown has
yes.
potential.
I agree. And that building, I just took a tour of it 2 weeks back. It's such a beautiful building inside. It's really, and that auditorium is like, my God. I think once it is fully done, it'll be something for people to see. That large French windows and everything is beautiful. And the inside work is going on really well. And our engineering program is really our future in many ways, because a lot of funding comes in engineering, right? And student recruitment, engineering is always very popular. So Provost is thinking of adding mechanical engineering. We don't have mechanical. We have just 3 programs right now: computer science, electrical, electronics, ECE, and sustainable engineering. So the idea is to add mechanical engineering as the next program. And one idea that we are floating is to work with HVCC. So do the first 2 years in HVCC, and the students will transfer to our campus for 3rd and 4th year. That will jumpstart our program. Plus, we don't need as much investment in machine shop and manufacturing, because HVCC has a phenomenal 2-year manufacturing program. They have lots of good labs. So I think that is, you will see more about it in the press coming up soon. Okay, so we have been doing reasonably well in the economic development side. We are now recently got the designation as IEP, Innovation and Economic Prosperity University from APLU. Next week or 2 weeks from now, President will go for the APLU's annual conference, and they will officially give us the designation, and you'll see in the press and things like that. It basically recognizes that we are actually working to promote the region and economics. So a lot of what we're doing. So we again spent 3 years building our portfolio to get the designation. So it's a very good thing for us for national recognition perspective. We started the iCode program that helps youngsters starting companies to do to learn about the market and how to start a business and things like that. We also have the Startup New York programs. A bunch of programs existed, but with ETech coming online right now, we got really good boost because some of them are located there. And so we are getting lots of local businesses coming to campus, and they're learning more about what we can do. So I will stop here, and I hope I didn't bore you with a lot of details, but be happy to take any questions.
Well, I'm impressed. I'm very excited and, you know, I said, well, I don't know what he's gonna talk about today, but I'm gonna be prepared to ask a question. I was gonna say, well, what about AI? Well, I guess I don't need to ask that question. It's an integral part of everything going forward.
See, the AI knew that you were not the question.
Right. So that's gonna become part of our Gen Eds. That's great.
Yeah,
Two or
So-
so questions.
yeah,
Yes, thank you. Hang on, Dan.
Okay, sorry.
who want to
We'll
go
use the
first?
mic because this gets everything recorded.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, first question is, Bertrand Russell, reminds us that science is what we know,
Yeah.
but philosophy is what we don't know. How will the undergraduates
Yeah.
and hopefully graduate students coming to the institution be left with a greater sense of being able to think critically and solve problems and sort of wend their way through the piles of manure that are now being shoveled using AI and other software now. That to me is somewhat critical for undergraduates because if they haven't gotten to us
Yeah.
with the skills of even learning to think using their own brains, the university will have to do a crash course or course is
Yeah.
on how they'll learn. And my second question, which is somewhat unrelated, what's going on in the accelerator labs?
Okay, let me take the first one. So, you know, in some sense, the whole idea of AI plus X is to address what you asked. Okay, because today, whether you're a student or whether you're a legislator, you get all your news from sound bites you see in headlines and newspapers or on social media. You really don't go deep, right? And this is what people are using to pass laws, regulation, and we are taught by reading something in Twitter or some forward with nobody has checked. That's not how it should be, right? So the whole idea of AI plus X is to bring academic rigor so you understand what the technology is and what can or cannot do. Don't just take the headline news from New York Times and then say that is what AI is. It's not, right? For people who work in the space of AI, half the time I read this news and I have to start and scratch my head. Oh my God, how can they write something like this? But our students should be learners. So, say one example is trust in AI. Okay, trustworthiness of AI. We have a professor in philosophy who has a $200,000 grant from IBM. And IBM loves his research because for them, the issue is will people trust AI? Yes, there are reasons why people don't trust AI, right? It goes much deeper than technology, right? It goes into so many aspects of day-to-day life, from everything from is AI always for good? Or there are things that AI should be thinking. I mean, most common story you hear is an AI-driven, self-driven car, right? It's taking an exit. And suddenly it sees a woman on one side and a child on the other side. And it has to make a decision to move, and one or the other will be hit. Would AI make a decision for you, saying that maybe I should save the kid? I don't know. What I'm saying is that these are the kind of decisions that the future generation, whether it's medicine or are using, but it all depends on who is actually developing them. And those are the people who should have the depth of not simply know that 2 + 2 is 4, but there's more to than most of the computer science people who sit and write this codes today. They are programmers, right? So you talk about racial bias in camera technique, right? It is a well-known fact, so much that many police departments now don't allow to use AI software for face recognition because it was developed in a way that was purely good scientifically. It's great numbers, look 99% accuracy, but it forgets many things, right? So I think you have a very good point. I think just like in anything, students should be taught to analyze, understand all sides of it. And AI plus X, I think, is a really good beginning. The second part, I'm not very sure, accelerator labs, what you're referring to.
Well, the accelerator labs, which are over just off of earth science, if that's what it's still called. You got a linear accelerator over there.
Oh, R&D lab.
It's,
yeah.
well, and the E-beam, yeah.
Of course, yeah.
Or there's two other labs, I think, that were associated with smaller accelerators.
So that is one of the most unique facilities that very few people know about. Right, I mean, Satyan, who's a AVP, Satyan is a physicist. Yes, after he came here, he has really tried to build that up, right? And I have fully supported it, including I just approved $100,000 a year to recruit a 1.5 time FTE to run the facility. This year, when we were going back for earmark, I made that my priority. And the good news is we are getting $600,000 from the latest budget to buy a new desktop linear accelerator. Okay. And we're also now spending time in marketing. There's a completely new website, beautiful website. We also did a TikTok video on IBL by 2 students. Happy to send it to you. If you get some time, just check it out. The idea is that this facility is so unique, others don't know. So we are talking to Brookhaven National Labs, and we are talking to Intel. Who did we talk to 2 days back? Global Foundries.
Yeah, got ion implantation.
Exactly. So that's what they do. And I think we're getting a second life out of that. It has been hidden in the basement for so many years.
That's what I never got to in my 42 years here.
Yeah. There are many people who don't know that exist. Some people know because they have classes nearby or something, otherwise they don't know about it.
First of all, a very interesting presentation. I was pleased to see and hear much of what you were talking about. I have 2 comments, both of them regarding the AI part of what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
The first has to do with this work with all sorts of computer sources here. I'm old enough to remember when Gordon Moore's law was first stated. And to know that even though they keep saying that, well, the law is going to stop working pretty soon, that the capacity of the equipment keeps getting better and better and better, and the need for more and more data gets better and better and better. So that I hope that one of the things that's part of what your negotiations are, your work with all these people, plus the fact that we're trying to build this so that it deals with all of the SUNY campuses and the RPI and others, is the expandability and adaptability are going to need to be a part of what you include in pursuing that. The other question or the other issue that I was concerned with, you actually talked about it a fair amount here, having to do with the biases built into some of the AI that we deal with. You're clearly quite familiar with the issues from some of the things that you said. There's a certain amount of garbage in, garbage out kind of issue to it. And actually kind of responsive to part of what Dan's concern was. As somebody who's in sociology, I would argue that one of the areas where work that might help undergraduates, graduates, faculty, and everybody gain greater knowledge of what you're really getting into and what you really need to be skeptical of, what you really need to move on, is to encourage those in the social sciences, and especially my own discipline, to try to participate in this. I know I'm a mathematical sociologist, and there are a number of mathematical sociologists who have a particular interest in AI, and especially in the biases that are built into AI. And if we can include in this cluster some people in the social sciences who have a sensitivity to those issues and are better able to pursue issues that will help us overcome some of the biases that easily get built into AI, I think that would be very useful.
So I'll take your first comment first. So I mentioned very briefly that I have been looking at a computer that's 50% production ready, which means anybody can use, and 50% developmental computer. And the idea is that the part which is development will always remain a development computer. So in year over year, we'll always have something very cutting edge in that part of it, right? So that's the whole idea of the architecture design, is that one whole block will be coming from IBM, Intel, and other people, whatever new they're creating. So hopefully that will cover some of the issues that computing gets outdated before even we buy it. Right?
Yeah.
And RPI is that's the issue. RPI bought a computer 3 years back, but they had no provision for expansion. They're already factoring over reaching out to us.
Yeah.
So we want to address that. In fact, that's one reason why I gave this interest to work with us. Because they like this idea of having a developmental computer idea. So they can, and I said that, okay, why don't you fund it for 5 years? So you bring the development, you'll be part of the same cluster, and you will have users like us testing it and breaking it, and they love it. Right, and others are also noticing our approach. I call it an evergreen cluster because it always remains green. So I'm glad to hear that others think like the same way. I think we should focus on that, and we are focusing on that, right? And historically, as an anecdote, I mentioned I worked in virtual reality. One of my first computer I bought was doing graphics, computer graphics, which regular PCs could not do. The company called Silicon Graphics Computer, SGI. So SGI was a computer they used to make Jurassic Park, Toy Story, and all that, right? So I bought a computer. This is the size of the computer, $800,000 idea. It was used for doing some computational work for chemistry. Hoffman Woodward, who was a scientist, Nobel laureate in Buffalo, his postdocs and others used the computer, but I also used for making a virtual archaeology palace and great work. But then NVIDIA company spun off from SGI and they started making this graph. And very soon there was this size card which can go into this laptop, could do everything that this size computer did. And so my students, as my new students came in, they didn't want to use the big computer. But you know what? I had no heart to throw it away. And I kept it there till I left Buffalo. And I thought one day maybe Smithsonian will come knocking on the door to.
In that same vein, when I started graduate school at Stanford in 1971, Stanford had gotten the first non-government owned IBM 370 mainframe, which was again one of the
I used to be
things. And now you can put on your calculator, in your cell phone or the calculator, you get all the capabilities that were in that massive mainframe.
Exactly. Your phones have, ultimate more computer graphics than CPUs used to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for the presentation. It's really great, and it is extremely exciting to hear what you're doing. I also really like the idea of distributing AI as a field of study across the disciplines. That's I think exactly the right way to go. But structuring it within the university, I think, poses some problems. If I understand what you're saying correctly, you're thinking about hiring AI specialists within particular departments or within particular disciplinary units.
All college, all over the college. The course is distributing it to all the deans. And through deans, it is going to 10, 12 different departments and not more. Yeah. Every college is getting at least 1 or 2 people. Yeah.
I worry that spells out the possibility of having a lot of lonely AI people.
Okay, so
where they don't have anybody else.
So it's a very good point. I think that is something Provost was concerned about. So our plan is to, no, actually President has already approved it. It's that we are not completely developed it, is to create an AI institute. That's the czar I mentioned, AI czar.
Yes.
And the idea is that everyone who works in the AI in the campus, which or department, a member of the AI institute. The idea is that while they have academic role, they will also be part of the community of AI workers, people working from all the way from computer science to, right? So they can all join hand together and work with the rest of the campus and things like that, right? And even classes start, people who are teaching some of the classes across the campus may have some home there. So in some way, we are trying to create a place where they don't feel stuck in a building and they don't know what else is going on the campus. So it's a good point, because it could happen if we don't help to create a gel or some kind of connecting tissues between all of these AI areas.
It really makes me think that that this is going to be an initiative that starts to restructure the university in some potentially interesting ways. Because it's sort of like you have a substantive disciplinary home in one part of the university, but then a research presence perhaps in another part of the university. And that's not the way things have always worked, at least in my experience.
Yeah, I had to wait and see how this all plays out. We're also a small enough university that we can do a lot of things, right? In a very large university, sometimes these things are very hard to coordinate. Well, like when I was in Illinois, it's so large that you cannot do something in campus wide. Almost impossible to do, right? Because every college is so big that it's like a university in itself. But that's not the case here. We are more like a liberal arts college, right? So we can actually create a culture that is very forward-looking, addressing real issues in the world where everybody, like the aging thing, right? We want everybody in the campus to contribute to that, because everyone has some role in an area which is related, right? So AI is one of them that hopefully will be a part of everything we do. So people don't do it in their own silos. They get to collaborate with other people and things like that. And whether you call it AI or whatever you call it in the future, but the fact that we are using computers that learn and help human beings is going to stay for a very long time, right? That's not going to go away. It's like phones. 20 years back, people just were buying phones. Today, people you cannot live without phones, whether you like it or not, but this mobile phone is the future, right? And if that is the future, AI is going to be the future. Go and look at the healthcare conferences. I go to quite a few of them. It's just growing exponentially. So it's every part of our life, right? So it is there, whether you call it AI or but the whole concept of computing being a part of your life, it's there. Right. And so that's what we are trying to leverage. Maybe 10 years from now, we won't call it an AI plus X. Maybe there's a new, maybe it's quantum plus X. I don't know what it is. But the strength we build here, I think, will stay.
Thank
You mentioned collaborations with local institutions like RPI and AMC, and also public-private partnerships with IBM.
Yeah.
What about Regeneron? They're obviously a leading pharmaceutical company. They have a major facility on the health sciences campus, and I would think there should be some natural collaborations between them and, say, the RNA Institute.
Yeah.
Or some of the other biomedical scientists on campus, or the Wadsworth Center.
Yeah.
Have they ever come up in discussions?
So people like Andy and others have spent a lot of time trying to build a relationship with Regeneron. The thing that Regeneron immediately says is that, oh, we want more trained people. Okay. So they always look at Albany and the other institution as a workforce development people for their R&D work, wherever it is in, they have their own research agenda and things like that. At individual level, there are faculty members in RNA Institute and others who work with individual groups in Regeneron. I've been trying to see if this could be much bigger, where Regeneron supports a bigger activity like a center. Very hard to get that done because they have a much different view of what commercial is, right? Pardon?
AMRI.
Yeah.
Similar.
Exactly, So, but we don't want to miss the opportunity. So currently there is a proposal being worked out with Regeneron to create a center of excellence for RNA here. $100 million each year from the state of New York. And the goal of there is to develop close relationship with Regeneron and a couple of other companies as well, where we train more PhDs and others that will impact them. So they'll be attracted to work with the university more. So in terms of research, I've been pushing to see if they can do something significant with us. But they have 4,000 people working in Ireland. Right. And so it looks like they are so focused on a certain thing. I don't think they work much in universities at all. And I was kind of disappointed because of everything. Well, you know, they're like small operation right here. Now it's like global company.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. As I said, I'm very excited. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, and I know it takes a while for organizing this meeting, but we did it. This jump stick is yours, right? Or is it mine? I don't.
What's that?
This stick.
No, that's yours.
Okay, I'll take it. Yeah, sure. Okay, wonderful. Thank you all, meeting all of you, and enjoy the rest of the day.
Very much appreciated.
Yeah.
Thanks.
very
Thanks.
much. Yeah, I think it's an excellent vision.
Yes.
And hopefully at least some of it will come to,
If you don't have a
close.
thing that,
exactly, because you're absolutely right. Albany's been handicapped for decades because we don't have a medical school, you know, like Stony Brook and Buffalo. In fact, I remember talking to Jim Diaz about that, you know, and of course, they have more NIH funding, which as I said, has the higher indirect rate, so it's.
so I think that when I went upstate, they talk about the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have engineering. Can you connect with engineering? I said we should do more. So that's the reason I went last week.
Yeah.
For their vision conference. I'm building the relationship with them and also
Yeah.
downstate. I'm hoping this relationship will create more.
Yeah, no, it's good, but it's also good that you've got other ideas that aren't necessarily dependent on a medical.
Yeah,
You know, like the AI initiative, and a climate change initiative, and